Coming to you from the city where for the last 8 months I have had the greatest adventure of my life. It's Ventriloquism Weekly. Matt Bailey here to welcome you in on this Monday, May 12th, 2014. Well, here we are again. It seems like yesterday it was Christmas time and we were taking our first long break. But we'll talk more about that after our guest today. He has appeared on more classic television than almost any other ventriloquist. From Ed Sullivan to Mike Douglas, he has quite literally done it all. Here to talk about his life and performing in what I truly consider to be the golden age of show business is the fantastic Russ Lewis. Mr. Russo Lewis, welcome to Ventriloquism Weekly. How are you today, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you, sir. Yes, it's good to be talking with you.
Well, it's great to be talking with you, too. And I'm so excited. I'm just going to jump right in with the first question. I always like to begin with my guests. How did you get started in this wonderful art form?
Well, it was for me, it was a matter of survival. I can't speak for others, but I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and my circumstances were such that I was on the streets at the age of 12. As I managed to, and was lucky enough to see a broadcast by Paul Winchell and Jerry Mahoney when I was about 13 or 14. But going back to when I was 11 and 12 years old, I would go to the city park, and there was a man that came around with, it was sort of like a carousel. It was a small carousel that sat on a truck. The children didn't go onto the carousel, but puppets were arranged all along the periphery, the outside of the carousel, and he would play calliope music from his truck, and the puppets would go round and round, and he would take up a collection. Well, as a boy, I had lost my mother at the age of 3, and my family was a broken family, and I would sit fascinated, I remember, on the park bench every time he would start up the merry-go-round to go round and round. The crowd would form, and I just watched fascinated. And I think that's what really started me going. I had the good fortune of meeting some very good people, among them some nuns and a priest who catered to children in those days. And they gave me, and I don't know, it was an act of insight on their part, but they gave me the book of Pinocchio by Collodi. Mm-hmm. And I held that book like it was my Bible. And I remember, I would go from living in various quarters, but I would never lose my book of Pinocchio. And that started me. When I saw Paul Winchell and Jerry Mahoney, it brought together in my mind what you might describe a kit that could embody all of the things that were going on inside of myself. Very simply, it created illusion. There was the puppet. There was the expressive resource that I could speak, because I didn't have the vocabulary, Matt, in those days.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a matter of giving me a tool to explore my own imagination, which was rather a very frightening thing at that time, or could be a very frightening thing. But the idea of distancing myself from what was scaring me, what was frightening me in life, was euphoric. Yes. So I've taken you way back to the earliest, to my earliest years.
Oh, please, wherever, it's fine.
Yes. It was from there. I have to jump now to the age of 15 or 16, when I found out that I could make $3 or $4 by doing what was known as an amateur show in Manhattan, in New York. Mm-hmm. And there were agents in the Roseland building Buddy Fryer was was one of the agents I worked for more than any other, and Ralph Shaw was another. Would take me up into the Borscht Belt, up into the mountains, and I would do a 5-minute bit with my little jokes. And for Buddy Fryer around the city itself in New York, we'd go to bars. We'd stand on top of a bar, and I would do my little jokes. And I got a book written by Robert Orban, and Mr. Orban wrote one-liners.
Yes.
So I gradually I began to structure an act. It took a while. I didn't have much of an act. I had about when that period of my life transited to a later period, I had about 10 or 15 minutes of solid material that would work. But getting back to Manhattan, along with the amateur shows, I found there was a place on 42nd Street off of Broadway, and it was called Hubert's Museum, and it was a sideshow, and they had Francis Lentini, Man with 3 Legs, 4 feet and 16 toes. They had the Swallower. They had Albert Alberta, half man, half woman. They had the Strong Man. They had the Magician, and the various illusions. And I got a job there. I did my 10 or 15 minutes that I had learned on the circuit, the amateur circuit. And I got paid $35 a week, and it was 12 shows a day, one on the hour, 6 days a week.
Incredible.
And that got me into the next phase of my life and my career. I think that discipline did that. And we could go on, you know.
Oh yes.
Yeah. But I would. Do you have any questions that can give me sort of a guideline of where you want to go? Because
it's what. No, I love to hear the stories. But coming off of that, how did Brooklyn come into the picture, and where did he come into that picture?
Right. Oh, okay. Brooklyn came into the picture during the sideshow era.
Mm-hmm.
Because I went from the sideshow of Hubert's Museum to Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, and to various carnivals in New Jersey, in New York, in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and in and around there.
Yeah.
And I needed a professional ventriloquist figure. I didn't have one. I was using a remake of a Jerry Mahoney figure, and there was a man who sold tickets to the museum. His name was Eddie Marino, and Eddie called me over and suggested to me that Professor Heckler, who ran the museum and also did the flea circus, suggested that he would have preferred that I had a professional-looking figure.
Mm-hmm.
A professional-looking puppet. And Eddie at that time was in his 70s, and he was retired. Like I say, he was a ticket seller at the museum, and he had been in vaudeville, and he had used a ventriloquist figure, which worked for me because he told me that he had put the figure on consignment with Al Flasso. Al Flasso was a magician. I think his son is still alive in New York. A magician, Al Flasso. He had a magic shop on 34th Street. That I might go over there and look at the figure there that's on consignment. And that's when I found the figure that I named Brooklyn Birch. Now, to jump forward, when we did the Ed Sullivan show in 1962, Mr. Sullivan did not like the name Brooklyn Birch.
Really?
Yes, he says, we can't use that. So I said, okay, I'll use a different name. So I used the name Clarence von Kibble. So when we got away from Mr. Sullivan, I went back to Brooklyn Birch later on, after I got out to Hollywood. I got out to Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so I went into burlesque. In those days, on 52nd Street in New York, it was just block after not block after block, but club after club of this is before comedy clubs, burlesque shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a comic or comedian had an opportunity to get up on stage. So that would keep me going, and it paid a little bit better than the circus sideshows. So I got into burlesque that way, and I managed to keep myself alive and keep paying the bills as I went, and improve my situation as I went. And I detoured into summer stock. I wanted, at that point, I felt that I could take time off and learn something about acting. So we went to Allenbury, Pennsylvania. An actor saw me down at the museum, and he said, "You would do very well in the role of Zucchini in Tea House of the August Moon."
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I went out there and I apprenticed as an actor until it came time to do the production of Tea House. And I stepped into the lead role with some very good actors, and I got my first really good taste of being involved in theater, the set design, set decoration, and I even used ventriloquism in that when one of the characters, he's a military man, Colonel Purdy, is talking to someone on a telephone. And I'm there in the office with a couple of the other officers, and I did the telephone voice coming back. And wouldn't you believe it? The audience cracked up. They laughed. They didn't know I was doing it, but I did the telephone voice reacting. And he was talking about making brandy, and I remember the voice went, "Brandy!" like that, very upset officer on the other side. But anyway, the audience heard it, and it kind of laughed. So I couldn't get away from the ventriloquism. So after studying acting, I stayed very interested in theater and in acting and in drama. When I went back to New York, I studied at Herbert Berghoff with Bill Hickey, and then at that point I left New York and headed out west to California, where my brother, also an actor, 10 years older than myself, he was sort of my role model, and he was appearing in such shows as his name is John Russo.
Yes.
John Duke Russo, and he's since passed on into the heavenly planes. And I talk to him frequently, but that's another story. He's playing in such things as The Untouchables, Star Trek, many shows out there. And to get myself oriented in Hollywood, the first thing I did USO shows. Wow. And we left, and I was with the first USO troop to cross the Arctic Circle for the Strategic Air Command personnel up there in the ice floes. And we did the shows. I returned, and I did a children's show, the Russ Lewis Show for children, on KTTV in Los Angeles. And the interesting thing there was there was a lot of interesting things with that show. Renee Zendejas did the remake of Brooklyn Birch.
Yes, Renee.
Yes. Because Brooklyn he really needed work by that time. And it's Renee's influence on Brooklyn Birch that gave him those very large eyes.
Yes.
And more of a shapely nose and a nice new skin on the face, and so forth. Anyway, what I was going to say about the show was each week on the show, what we would do is we would put a ventriloquist doll in the hands of children who had never held one.
Oh, awesome.
Yes. And we did a little song with Brooklyn Birch. I remember it went, You have got a little friend. He is part of you. You can make him speak and move. It's not hard to do. Give him a funny voice. Teach him to sing. You'll find it's lots of fun, a most fantastic thing. Make your friend say, how are you? And believe it or not, Matt, the kids would turn that puppet to their face, pull the string at the right time with the correct synchronization, and they gave it a voice. How are you? It's a lovely day. And they would say, it's a lovely day. Make him nod his head to you, then turn the other way. And the kids would turn the puppet's head to them and turn the puppet's head away. With some imagining, your friend can come true. But always keep this thought in mind. Your friends are part of you. Boom. That was that. And we did that every week for children. And what's so amazing about that is ventriloquism, aside from the technical aspect, is a very real extension of the ability to invent and to reshape the mind. And little children are born with it, you see. But the ventriloquism with the doll gives them a chance to shape that and bring it out to where it can be seen, where they can explore in safety, they can explore their own imagination.
That's incredible. That's the doll as an instrument, as a tool, and the imagination, the art form of ventriloquism as the vehicle. That's incredible. Really cool. And just go ahead.
Oh!
I thought you were going to say something. Sorry.
We could go on. I just need a little direction from you because my mind can take paths.
I just try not to interrupt because I love to hear these stories. And so, did studying acting, or I'm sure, how did studying acting inform your writing for Brooklyn?
Right. Okay. As two things.
Yes. Personal
expression into characterization. All right.
Okay.
How to infuse emotional content into, we're talking about drama.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy, it's a little bit more distancing. But how to infuse your emotions into characterization of a human being other than yourself. Okay? Now there it is. There's the perfect meld between ventriloquism and the puppet, which is exactly what you're doing there, as what the actor is doing as well. There's that fusion of self with characterization. And if you pick up any good book on writing, there's going to be a chapter under characterization and how to build character. Okay, how to create character. How do you take your character off into different directions? When you get into series writing and you're looking for the dramatic through line, you don't create a dramatic through line, and that's like doing a ventriloquist act. There might be an end to the act, but there is not an end to the play. Okay? In other words, it's always growing. If you're going to do a play, you're going to do a film, there's an end to it. It's either a happy ending or a dramatic ending or whatever kind of an ending there is, but there's an ending to it. A ventriloquist act is doing a series. It's open-ended, and the character always grows. You talk about Jeff Dunham, or you talk about Terry Fator. These guys, because they're on top of their game, are hard-pressed to create new material every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's open-ended. They're doing a series. And all right, Terry Fator has writers now to help him with it, and I don't know about Jeff, but I can only guess, and I think I'm pretty close to the mark, that he'll do a show, and when we don't see him on camera, he's still working in front of an audience to find out what works.
Yes.
And what doesn't work. Yeah. So there, as to your question as to how does acting is at the base of it all. Acting is at the root of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's invention. but it's performance. You invent, but then you perform what you invented. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, in drama and in theater, you're working with an ensemble group.
Yes.
Yeah. I know when the Hollywood Palace I did with Steve Lawrence, Steve would come in and do sketch with me, and I would give Steve the taglines. Or the same thing with Dean Martin. I would take a joke and from a routine, one of my routines, and I would save the tagline for the person I was working with. It's more of an ensemble. When I do, even now, I'll give you an example. We brought in a group of orphan children to hear the night before Christmas, and I had someone else read the night before Christmas, and Brooklyn Birch sat between me and the person reading, and the children were in front of us. And Brooklyn Birch did not do jokes, but he commented on the night before Christmas. It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house. And Brooklyn, what house? What house? It's not important, Brooklyn Birch. What house? Yeah, but no. What happened? And not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was quiet? Yes, it was quiet. That's right. So you can see, Matt, that he's not doing jokes.
Right.
But he's working in an ensemble context. He's working, it lends itself easily. In other words, it's open-ended. And once again, this goes back to drama. Is it specific lines that you've got to adhere to, you've got to memorize, or is it an ad-lib improvisational style, okay, that will lend itself to ensemble acting?
Mm-hmm.
You following me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And that anyway. So we got off a little bit.
Oh no, it's perfect. It's such an interesting and unique way to look at it that has landed you so many television appearances, too numerous to count, and all these different experiences. And so, do you have any stories you'd like to share? I'm hard pressed to find one question to ask you about such a experience in television. Anything that you'd like to share from all of these appearances on these great shows, Ed Sullivan and Mike Douglas, and you mentioned Dean Martin. What can you share from being on such classic television shows?
Well, there's different aspects. There's the fact of getting the credits, of having done them.
Mm-hmm.
There is on the side of that, there is, I think we talked about this a little bit before, the need to, let me put it this way. What I learned from doing all of these shows is this. If you're going to expose what you have that works to a medium such as television, which will absorb what you have so fast, you don't even know it's being done. But because it's successful, they will immediately ask you for another piece. Because if a ventriloquist act is hard pressed to get new material daily, the media is even more so.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you're not prepared, I remember when I did 5 Hollywood Palaces, and Nick Vanoff and Bill Harback, they were the producers.
Yes.
I remember how bad I felt. I walked into the office, and they looked at me eagerly, smiling, and they said, "Russ, have you got another hunk for us? Give us another hunk." And Matt, I'll be honest with you, my heart sank. And this is the lesson: if you're going to expose yourself to a medium like television, have new material ready. If what you're going to do is going to be successful, they're going to ask you for more.
Yes.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So think in advance. Have new pieces ready. And if you're making any money doing television, okay, spend some time, spend a little money to get some new material.
Yes.
And work on it. I have a saying that I tell people, I don't write my own material. My audience writes it for me. In those days when I couldn't afford a writer, my audience was my writer. What they liked stayed in. What they didn't like got thrown out. So my audience did my editing for me.
What a great way to look at it. We should all listen to our audiences.
Oh, it's all about the audience.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. I mean, ego and pride of what you've done aside, what is your audience going through at that time, and why do they want to sit there and enjoy what that theater is being presented to them? That's what it's about. So there's a saying, you've got short shelf life material, which is the audience is sitting there and they are, their head is filled with what's going on, the news and the names of today, and the long shelf life material, which is things in history. I know I use a lot of fairy tales in my in my act, as did Disney, because it was long shelf life material. It wouldn't if Disney did something about a president during the days when Disney was producing films, it would be short shelf life.
Yes,
it wouldn't mean much to today's audience, but he did classics, and these classics had beautiful, indelible themes that were applicable every day in real life. So that was a long shelf life material.
Yes.
So I think I'm a little off the point there.
No. The point of this program is to get off the point. That's the whole thing.
No, that's funny. That's wonderful. Well, that's what comedy ventriloquism is, to get off the point, to give yourself a relief from every day. That's wonderful. Yes, yes. Well, and Matt, I'm glad you said that, because that's the whole idea is people need distancing from their everyday. People need, and the ventriloquist as well as the actor, but we're talking about ventriloquism. The ventriloquist with the puppet creates the reality that every person goes through every day, and that reality is the mind needs distancing from itself in order to recoup and do transformation from the changes that they're meeting in their lives every day. It's like I say, it's a distancing kit. It's for transformation, and that's it, to get off the point and to give the mind some relief. That's what it's about. But you've got to return it to reality. You've got to return it to the people, and that's why you do short life or long life material, returning it to the people. You can be hip and with it, with your commentary in the ventriloquist act about what's going on today, or you can do long shelf life and refer it to the emotions that people go through every day that will never end. Mm-hmm. If you see what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. And you bring me to another question I have, which, speaking of long life, and forgive me if you do work with another character. I just looking up all these different archive videos. It's just been a lot of you in Brooklyn. What are the benefits of mainly working with one character throughout a long career?
Oh, okay. Well, you're talking about growth.
Yes.
Open-ended growth. It's a series. The character grows. The character goes through different dimensional aspects of that personality. Early in my career, Brooklyn Birch would never have spoken about esoteric matters, mm-hmm. and turning those esoteric matters into a comic form that he pursued. Let's say he pursued the act of meditating and got caught up by a pretty lady. And he got into an adventure with the pretty lady, and it didn't work out, and he failed, etc. And you make it funny, But in the early days, I never would have used the word like meditating in the ventriloquist act, because the character had not grown to be able to handle that and transpose it into a comic form, into a puppet form, a comic form. But the character grows. So that's the advantage of working with one character. I noticed with Jeff Dunham, okay, he'll start with Walter, and Walter will grow, and he'll put Walter away, and he'll bring out Ahmed, but Walter, I've noted, Walter will respond from the suitcase. Well, once upon a time, Ahmed did not exist.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, Jeff allowed the Walter character, to grow. Like I said, it's a series. Now Walter is aware of Ahmed, and you jump over to his Peanut character. His Peanut character will refer back to Ahmed and Walter, yes. Which means the Peanut over time, the Peanut characterization has grown, and the references that Walter makes to marriage, Ahmed makes to his angst, his anger, if you will. Be quiet, I kill you. That kind of thing. Peanut picks up on it, which means the Peanut character has grown. So there's development going on. So the advantage, frankly, Matt, of working with one simple advantage of working with one character is that you can focus it, you can use it. It's easy to transport. Well, I wouldn't say easy to transport. You have to be very careful taking it into airplanes.
Yeah.
On the Ed Sullivan show, I traveled from Hollywood to New York, and I opened the suitcase, and Brooklyn's face was broken in half. Oh my God, the eye was hanging out. The jaw was now sideways where it was before. I was panicking. I said, "Can somebody please help me?" And they brought me downstairs to the carpenter shop. And before the Ed Sullivan show, I was down there and using glues and tape on the inside. I put the eye back into place. I put the jaw back into place. And I use a very thick paint on the outside. I put a fan on it to get it to harden fast. And I think it took maybe 4 or 5 hours of being able to do that. I had nowhere else to go. I hadn't been in New York for a long time. I was a stranger, so I went to their set department, their carpentry department,
mm-hmm.
to put the head back together again. And that's what I mean by okay. So you're traveling with one character. Imagine if I had Jeff Dunham's setup of characters,
mm-hmm.
and they were wrecked. I never would have been able to recover in time. So you have a convenience of working with one character and letting that character grow, evolve, and grow into new material. And as far as traveling is concerned, it's easier traveling with the one character than with many.
Incredible insight. And our last question, we've been here for over half an hour. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you've come and you've just wanted to share. I always end with this. What do you want to see? You've done it all, and in an era of show business that I envy, and I wish I could have been a part of, and I know a lot of others do. But today is just as great and just as exciting. What do you want to see today?
Say that again.
What do you want to see from ventriloquists today?
Today, Matt, I want to see it utilized in not only for hobby but for therapy. It's a way for people, as we've already discussed, to explore their imagination. It's a safe way. It's a safe way to show children who are being exposed to some very dangerous ways of exploring their imagination.
Yes.
That there is there is a system whereby an artist can form on the outside what they can only feel on the inside. And they can explore it that way, that there is such a possibility. I would like to see ventriloquism play a role in this, in hobbies and therapy. I certainly want to see it in education.
Yes.
And as far as entertainment is concerned, you've got a world of voiceovers out there with special effects and cartoons and that kind of thing, and I think that's going to come automatically. And ventriloquism is never going to go away. And the reason why it's never going to go away is because it's innate inside of a human being. It is the act of distancing oneself from the everyday, and we have to do that every day. Everybody does. We have the self-concept, and that self-concept explores itself, examines itself, so that it can meet the requirements of change.
Yes.
We're all under that burden. And ventriloquism demonstrates the principle of distancing, throwing the voice.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And what a wonderful and lovely note to end on. Thank you so much, Mr. Russ Lewis. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this program.
Oh, it's many blessings to you and to the listeners, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Russ Lewis. Thank you again to Russ for taking the time to speak with me. There is so much more we could have talked about, and I hope we can in the future. Like I said, he said in the thing, "Oh, do you have any questions?" I was just like, "No, I'm just listening. You tell, you talk, you talk." There's so insightful stories from the golden age of show business, and that was so great to hear and just wonderful to get to listen to. So thank you, Russ. And now on to some business about this show. This season was a bit shorter than the last one because I started the program in the summer, and I thought in August we'd need more than a week to transition to my first year of college before I'd get back up and running for interviews and stuff. So we ended up doing 23 episodes when you put the summer and the first semester together. And so that's why this one was a bit shorter. And I'm not one for long goodbyes, although I do want to explain what's going on as we take another month off. As always, this isn't even goodbye, just to see you in a bit. And just because this season was shorter doesn't mean there was anything less. I'd wager to say we outdid ourselves. From California back to my trusty desk here in New York, you stuck with me through another round of this craziness called Ventriloquism Weekly, and I could not be more grateful. We will be returning on June 16th. I know that sounds far off, but by no means am I slacking off during the next month. I will be taking this time off during my transition back home to work on getting all of our episodes on our brand new website, ventriloquismweekly.com. We are in the final stages and almost ready to launch. And by the time we are ready to launch the site in mid-June, even episodes that had to be removed to create storage space on our hosting site will be back live and online for all to enjoy. Plus, we will be gearing up for our live interview with our buddies Jim Barber and Todd Oliver at the Vent Haven Convention in July, and nearing our 1-year anniversary here at VW. Time just goes so fast, and I can't believe I'm saying that the beginning of July we'll be celebrating 1 year. It's closer to it now than not, so it's crazy. Really nuts. If anybody knows where time goes, email me. Let me know, please, because I'm actually curious what happens to time, because it just speeds up. Special thanks for this season goes to Steve Axtell, Mark Daniel, Jay Johnson, Mark Wade, Terry Fader, and every single one of our guests. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I also want to mention a name you may not recognize, Danielle Panetta. She created the logo suite we have been using since March, and I don't plan on changing our look anytime soon. In fact, the black, white, and purple motif that she created for the show is the color palette I used when designing the website. So it was great to have that to work off of. So thank you, Danielle. You really helped launch the look of this show into the next generation. Last but not least, I want to thank you, the listeners, one more time. You make the show. I wouldn't be doing this without you. Thank you so very much for putting up with me. In our absence, feel free to connect with me, with the show, and with each other by visiting ventriloquismweekly.podomatic.com. We will still be live on podomatic.com until we go live on our site and everything's up there. I'm not going to delete from there before we're live on the website. That just wouldn't make any sense, because then you guys will get to lose out while we're not creating new episodes. We're on Facebook in a group so that we can all communicate with each other. Facebook.com, search for Ventriloquism Weekly -podcast for ventriloquists. Tweet us at Talk4Two. And of course, we are and always will be, even when we go to the website, on iTunes by searching Ventriloquism Weekly. It has been a distinct honor and pleasure. Until June 16th, signing off for Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding all you vents out there to keep talking for two. It's all together now, we're all in this forever.